There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode here at the Kickpod Podcast, the podcast dojo for inspirational martial arts talk. I am your host, TJ Williams, currently a fourth degree black belt in a Chuck Norris system, and on my way to be fifth degree black belt in a month or so. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm here to give you the insight of my martial arts journey, discussing the analyze of martial arts based subjects, and highlight individuals that are involved in martial arts past, present, and future. All right, so for those who are just joining me for the first time, this is a pre-recorded episode. So whatever I talk about in this episode is either coming up or already passed. And which I would like to say that we are almost close to the end of May. And of course, the one holiday is going to end this holiday or end this month is Memorial Day. So that's going to pretty much come quick. But yet we're approaching the last full week of May. And of course, June is coming up. And as a lot of us celebrate in June. We got Father's Day, and in my case, if for those who are living in the Niagara Falls, New York, and Ontario region, or mostly in the Southern Ontario region, of course, the Niagara Falls Comic Con is returning June 9th to the 11th. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And yet I got my cosplays all set up. So I'm looking forward to that. Meet celebrities. Definitely just be a kid again. So that'd be my guilty pleasure. So at least have fun with that. Anyway, so I got a guest with me today. Of course, he's also somebody from Canada. So yes, of course, he has 24 years of martial arts experience. Holds a fourth then in legacy Shorin Yu karate. Well, you'll pronounce that later, but I'm not very good with martial arts names. So, of course, he competed in multiple tournaments. Holds a PhD in civil engineering and manages all technical aspects of the Punch Kick Choke Chat podcast. And for those who missed out on my episode, it is available on YouTube, so you'll be able to listen to my story into my martial arts journey. So I like everybody to meet Robert Chumsky. Is definitely he's agreed to be on the show, and yet this is his first podcast. So let's welcome him. How we doing, Robert?
Excellent. Thanks, TJ. Thanks so much for having me on. And yeah,
Yeah,
it is my first podcast. It's fun to be on this side of the interviewee chair.
yeah. So I guess you're used to actually doing like the technical things of a podcast, but you actually haven't hosted or actually been on a podcast.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. We've had now 100 episodes on Punch Kick Choke Chat, but I tend to be behind the scenes, video turned off, managing things that way. So yeah, on the opposite side of the chair this time.
Man, they're so lucky. I mean, I gotta do everything myself, but definitely it's like nice that they have somebody in the background to do like the technical stuff, and then all they do is just chat.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a good team. Everyone's got their thing that they bring to the table. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was like a fun episode of having like that. That was like having all five of them just interview me. It's just getting to know all five of them. And I got two of them on my show, and it's just like I want to at least get all of them and just make sure this podcast is just inspiring everybody to either get into martial arts or get better with their life.
yeah, that's right. That's the goal, right? Connect
Definitely.
everyone and inspire people.
Yeah. Oh, and just on a side note, he is not related to the actress Anna Chumsky. So I was informed before the show. So of course, people are familiar with her with the movie My Girl with Macaulay Culkin. So yeah. So just a heads up. So don't mistake them as a relative of her. Right?
As far as I know, that is. I still have to look into that. I think
Yeah.
I could probably get away with people telling people we were related.
Yeah. I could probably get away for telling people I'm related to Billy D. Williams,
Yeah.
or even Robin Williams. Yeah. All right. So, Robert, you're going to take us back in time with your history. So, of course, I know everything right now is with you is happening with martial arts. Of course, you're currently a fourth degree, and I'm guessing you're working for your next rank is in fifth degree, correct?
Yeah, working towards it. It's still far away as far as I know. There's no sort of set date or anything like that, and I do my best not to think about next rank and just put my head down and keep working on what I'm doing, and the belts come. So always working towards it, but not with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing with me. Just taking it day by day. I mean, making the days counts. I mean, I'm like so anxious to get that black jacket, but I have to worry about everything else before actually making it to that point to actually do my performance and get that black jacket put on me. So I'm pretty much just taking it day by day.
Yeah, I think that is the only way to make real progress, right? Is just take it day by day, focus on the art, get yourself better, and then things come. If you chase belts, then you wash out.
Uh, yeah, definitely. Something I pass to my students as well.
Mhm.
All right, so you're going to take us back in a time machine right now, and I'm guessing from the experience, the amount of years of experience that you have, we pretty much are on the same experience online because I have 26 years of experience, and yet, of course, you're probably like at least 1 or 2 years behind me. Yeah, because I started probably like late 1996, and I'm guessing you started like probably 2 years after that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Going back, I would have started around 1998. I was 5 years old just before my sixth birthday, and I worked out, or sorry, I should say, my parents worked out at a gym in Kitchener, and happened to be the same gym that Sensei Rennie Dauphin had recently planned to open a school at, and so they heard about some sort of karate school opening at that gym, and as far as I know, thought that would be sort of a good place to take me as a, you know, somewhere they can dump me while they go and do their workout. So we went to the demo that was put on. Of course, I didn't know them at the time, but both Sensei Rennie Dauphin and now Hachigiri Legacy were there as part of that demonstration. So I was at that demonstration as well, signed up that night, or rather, my parents signed me up, and then had my first class the next week. And yeah, and have basically been there ever since.
Oh, funny thing when you talk about that story, the karate school that I joined also had a gym inside it as well. So of course that's kind of like almost like a similar story to mine. But I mean, I never got to use the machines beforehand, but I got to actually take the karate class, and of course, that was just like the best experience. Right? So
It's always funny how just those chance things, right? Just happen to be there. Happen to be in the right place. Your parents brought you to the right place, and things just work out that way. And yeah, funny story about my very first class. So after the demo and signed up, and then came to my first class. Of course, I'm 5 years old, about a month before my sixth birthday. I'm just terrified because everyone's seems really tall. Of course, now taller than a lot of them, but at the time I was a tiny kid for a 5 year old, and everyone seemed giant. I was really, honestly just kind of afraid of being in that room. And I remember Sensei Dauphin leaning over me and putting his hand on my back and saying, "So you want to do some karate?" And I fully intended to just shake my head and say no, and something made me say, "Okay, yeah." And he just kind of ushered me in, and in my mind, that's kind of uh, you know, um, the tunnel start into karate, and never looked back since then.
for me, I mean, it wasn't not a scary experience because I was so into martial arts as a kid. I mean, watching movies, TV shows, cartoons. I wanted to get into this, and yet that one day that I actually got to do my first class, it was an excitement, and yet I didn't get my first gi yet. I mean, I spent pretty much a couple classes, short sleeve shirt and sweatpants, and probably a cold, but yeah, not the worst cold, but it was like I wasn't even worried about the code. I was worried about doing this class. So, and of course, just thinking of my first teacher, my first instructor, who still does it. I kind of feel bad that I'm ahead of him. Thinking of my fifth degree, and he's still first degree.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember you talked about that when we connected around Punch Kick Choke Chat.
yeah,
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 just the way it goes sometimes, eh?
yeah. I mean, of course, he has kids to worry about. So, of course, me, I don't have no kids. I mean, I got two nieces, so I mean, that's more like I have kids anyway.
Yeah.
I got to worry about my oldest niece turning 16. I mean, so next I got my teach her to drive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Take her behind the wheel and make sure she knows what she's doing on the road.
Yeah, I'll take her in a parking lot and make it safe. Empty parking lot somewhere.
That's the way to start. That's how I started too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we kind of get into your first class. You're a 5 year old, like months away from me, 6 year old. And of course like trepidatious trying to get in there. But can you like remember like what you went over in that class that pretty much excited you to say, I want to continue doing this?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about that a fair bit, and I don't remember much from that class. I know in the first month or so, I was, I don't think I was a very tough kid. I think a lot of the things that I've learned since in karate about grit and being tough and having that mental fortitude I learned from karate. I don't know that it was necessarily in my nature, if that makes sense. I was, and some of this Sensei Dopen has told me about afterwards, but I was complaining about cold feet and that kind of stuff, and so I was just that kind of kid in the class. But one thing Sensei has told me is that I was always a quick learner, so he would show something and I would immediately have it. So he said he got frustrated with me a lot of times because he would show me a Shido or something like that, and I would do it almost immediately, and he would get frustrated because other people in the class it would take them so long to do, and here's this little 5-year-old kid who is too small to be much of a threat in terms of fighting or anything like that, but he can pick up the moves and the kata super quick. So I was always a good student in that sense.
Yeah, so definitely with my of course my current sensei or my current instructor would tell you like kids like mostly boys would be more visual in what they see, and then of course they pick up on that, but mostly for girls that's different. It's probably tough for girls to learn than to boys, but not that that's kind of separate the whole thing. I want to be equal balance. I just of course I got this one student, this one girl in my class that really picks up everything well. Of course, she's very athletic, so I guess that's the thing with martial arts nowadays. It's like you got to have it almost as a kind of an indemnity to other things like other sports. So of course, if you're making sure they're conditioned in martial arts, then they'll be conditioned in sports, and yet that will make them more powerful in martial arts as well as sports. So it's a two-way street.
That's right. Yeah, if everyone brings something into the dojo, and if they're starting as a young kid, they don't necessarily have that foundation. You get to set a good foundation, and then that gives them something to work on. Even if they don't stay in martial arts, it'll make them better in whatever other sport they pick up. 100%.
Okay. So
Um,
yeah.
funny story I have for you, and since Dauphin likes to tell this one, but when I started, there was actually an age limit of 7 years old. You had to be at least 7 years old to start in the dojo, and my dad with his foreign accent told Randy Sensei Dauphin, he told him, "Oh no, my son is 6. He's turning 7. Like he's almost a month away. Like, can we let this slide, basically?" And he said, "Okay, no problem. That's fine. He seems to be picking it up, so no problem. We can let it slide this time." And month in after I started, I'd tell Sensei Dauphin, "Hey, it's my birthday today." He says, "Oh, that's awesome. So you're turning 7, right?" I said, "No, I just turned 6."
Ooh, ooh.
So he came back and had a chat with my dad. At that point, I'd already been in the dojo a month and a half or so. So it seemed to be going okay. So I managed to not get kicked out. But uh, yeah, funny story. Again, he says, "Imagine if I had kicked out Robert. If I had said, 'Oh, you're 6, not 7. Get it, get out of the dojo.' History would have been different."
Yeah, so definitely it was like that humble moment for you. So yeah, you're so definitely the age limit was 7 years old. Then of course, yeah, you found out that your dad kind of tweaked it a little bit, and then just to get you in there. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and I maintain my innocence. I didn't know anything about this till years after. I wasn't that devious as a kid. That was my parents' scheme, but but I'm happy they did what they did.
Yeah, so I know with my school we have like a panda program. So usually 4 to 5 year olds can do this class until they are reached up 6 years old. So that's how we start our classes. Like if you're 6 years old, you can start a regular class. But with these pandas, it's just getting them to see how well they can listen, how coachable they are. With 4 and 5 year olds, it's like it's a tough deal. But
Mhm.
mostly you're gonna get those 4 or 5 year olds that really pick up everything that, of course, like you did. It's like you could see things and you could do it without any hesitation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you always get a few kids that just somehow have laser focus, even at 4 or 5 years old, and it's rare. But yeah, those are good students to hold on to. And even for the other kids, even if it just gets them moving and they start to slowly build up some of that dojo etiquette and the discipline and start to get used to listening to people and being told sort of what to do in the dojo in that context. Good skill set anyway. Yeah, we had a kids program before COVID. It got shut down around then, but um, yeah, this is making me reminding me that we should restart that because it's just a good pathway for many kids to get into the dojo.
And the one thing we always want to get them early because with some parents, not to say that they're bad parents, but either they spoil them rotten that they have no discipline, or they put so much discipline on them that you know they end up becoming bullies, and that's something that we try to avoid. And that's that's just one thing that I try to watch out for with these kids.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. Nobody likes a bully. You gotta take care of that when you see it in the dojo right away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, do you have any favorite memories during your training?
Yeah, I was thinking about this too. I have so many memories. Yeah, I like I said, I didn't really know who I was when I came into the dojo, and so a lot of things kind of started to click in for me afterwards, I would say. Um, I started with a group of four other people when I started, and they were all people that I looked up to. They were all, of course, a bit older than me, but one person was just a few years older, and so I looked up to her a fair bit, and a few other people that were there were, some of them were adults, but they were with their kids, and I looked up to them like, here's my karate parent, here's my karate older brother or older sister. So I kind of had that relationship with a lot of students in the dojo growing up, and there was one evening after a house party of karate people, so it was a social gathering, and we went out close to midnight at the onto the street, and we just did Pasai show by the moonlight, and it was just kind of a cool moment of here's the mix of karate and social, and it was just a really cool moment.
Yeah, I think it's always actually it's great to actually do activities with your karate family. Of course, with my karate family, sometimes we like go out to eat, and of course we have these events, and yet we go to certain other places. Like for one thing, probably mentioned this in my interview at during the podcast, saying that I go to a yearly convention in Las Vegas, and yet of course I'm a month away from going to there, and it's almost interaction not only with my karate family but with other schools. Yes, so it's always great to meet people from around the country as well as even other countries. So it's like I pretty much know people from Norway or Mexico or even like countries like uh Uzbekistan. So yeah,
Hmm.
so it's always great to actually at least know people there from different countries and at least get to know their culture as well as know why they're into martial arts.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm probably jumping ahead in your questions a little bit, but we can move around. Hopefully that's okay. We during COVID, we did something called World Martial Arts Live, and it was basically a 24-hour training event, continuous training, 96 countries from around the or it was 96 instructors, and many countries from around the world were participating in this. And it's just the sort of a hallmark moment, and at least for me. So speaking of good memories, that was kind of a big achievement. Of course, I was there doing a lot of the technical stuff in the background and connecting all these people and making sure that everybody could get in and things ran smoothly, and it went off more or less without a hitch, which is really amazing. But yeah, it's amazing the network that's out there, and you realize that you see people training online in Russia, and people in Australia, and people in the UK, and all over the world all training together at the same time, and you realize, yeah, this is a big family. And even if you haven't met the people, you know that they're of a similar mindset, they have similar values, they just, they care about their martial art, they want to get better, and they want to train with people, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I like actually like look at Instagram and Facebook and I see all the people from like different countries like this one woman that I kind of reached out to in England. I mean, she's very highly I could say proficient in kata. So I actually watch her do her katas or actually do certain sequential training to her kata. And I was like, and I actually would look at her katas. It's like the katas that she does is similar to what I was learning. And it's just that's something that I kind of gear myself to. It's like if you don't learn traditional katas, that's not going to prepare you for everything else. I tell these my students that if you're going to get better in sparring, you have to be good in traditional sparring or traditional martial arts. So that's pretty much how things are when you're training. You learn about the history of martial arts, then you learn about today's martial arts, and that I feel like that's something that it's lacking. It's like we kind of go into learn how to fight because things are changing because with the rise of technology. People are filming the fights, and if they see how you fight online, they're gonna know how to beat you.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, seeing stuff online isn't everything, but yeah, it's yeah, I mean, it's certainly things are a lot more open than they used to be, and I mean, it's got its ups and downs, but overall, I think it's a good thing. People are, putting their stuff out there. People are cross training, people are training with other people, and doesn't mean you necessarily have to hold everything to the same value or incorporate absolutely everything into your own martial art, because you still have to stay, listen to your sensei and stay strong in your own art before you dilute yourself too much. But it is fun to bring different pieces back, and if you're at a high enough level, be able to incorporate it into your own martial art.
Yeah, but the one thing is you want to make sure you're kind of in like an in-person dojo before you kind of do that. No, that's been the mistake. People think they can learn online, but yet they haven't actually been to an in-person dojo to actually to experience that. Definitely for me, I want to make sure I'm trained in in-person dojo, in which luckily for the past 26 years, I've been doing that. And and that other and then going to other seminars. Like I think I mentioned that in the podcast. I went to this martial arts festival, 8
Mhm.
instructors teaching like 30-second or 30-minute sample of their martial arts. I'm just really observing, just having an empty cup and taking like all these 8 drinks and like getting a certain sip of it. Some of it is some of it's all right, some of it's too sweet, some things too sour, but at least I get a little taste of it, and I can pretty much use that to get better with my martial arts. And yet,
Mhm.
with all those 8 drinks, you could mix it up into like your own drink, and just think about like all the fruit drinks I make in the morning. Like put a piece of banana in there from so blueberries and little water, maybe a little of pomegranate juice, and maybe some apple cider vinegar. Which, I mean, I'm trying to get used to the taste of that, but that's pretty much could help my health.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I mean, you can do that. You can go train with different people and get a sampling of 8 different martial arts and or martial artists and their style, and take it back and do something with it. But you can do that because you've been training for 26 years, I think you said. You can't go in a dojo and train for 3 years and think, okay, I'm Bruce Lee, and now I can take all these different pieces and actually make sense of them, right? You have to get to a certain level before you can even think about, I'm gonna grab this off the shelf and try to see what I can if I can break it apart and do something with it into my own art.
Yeah, the thing about martial art is, you have to be trained every day because, you not to say that you're going to use it one day, you're trying to avoid to use it. But in this case, if you're in a situation where you have to use it, you probably know how to really react to like what's going to happen. One thing we always suggest to our students, when you're encountering with somebody with a knife or gun, give them what they want. It's you only got one life, so that the things that you own can be easily replaced, but you only got one life. You can't be replaced.
Yeah, that's right. We say in our dojo a lot that if you have something like that and you get home safe, then your martial arts served you well. Whatever you have to do, if you get home, then it served you well.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if that means just being smart and calm enough to say, okay, this person has a knife. The $100 in my wallet is not worth my life. Here you go. Have a nice day. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And you get home safe and you're calm to that situation, then your training did what it needed to do, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's kind of get into like your first black belt test. So if you can have a memory of that, and I know with all the of guests that I had on the show and asked like what their first black belt test was, and I know with black belt testing, it's a lot of endurance. So I'm guessing your first black belt test was pretty much the same deal.
It would have been similar, yeah. So I was 14 years old, which was a bit of a um, not the first person to do it in our system, but one of the earlier ones I would say to do it in our system. Normally, you have to be 16 years of age to get your black belt and to go through the testing, and only in some sort of exceptional circumstances do people younger than that go through. So again, I know we've had a number of people in our system do that now, but I think I was maybe number 4 or 5 at the time. So I was definitely on the younger side. For our black belt test, we did all 16 of our katas. There was myself and 2 other people that were grading on that day. One of them was a pregnant lady, and so she didn't do the fighting portion, but she did her katas, and then myself and the other guy basically proceeded to do the katas, practice some, demonstrate some self-defenses, answer some history, philosophy, application questions. Uh, things like when you do a side kick and you have your fist your back fist there. What is that doing? And talking about some of that application. Um, yeah, it's funny when you go through that testing and people could ask you, what did you have for breakfast this morning? And your mind is already just between the stress and the anxiety and the fatigue, your mind is already gone. So it's not an easy feat to do your katas at a high level at your black belt test, deal with the anxiety, answer history, bring yourself back down to that level, right? Anyway, so we do our 16 katas, we answer a number of questions, and then we do fighting. And typically it's brown and black belts. No one below the rank of brown belt is allowed to be there for their own sake. And you basically fight everyone in the room that is there and that is willing to fight with you. So for my test, I fought 14 people. Um, yeah, so including the other person that was grading with me or recommending with me, I should say.
Oh boy. I mean, it's kind of like well, going backwards with my test because for before every test that we have to do, like we have 4 black belt tests. Like for every test that we have to do like an essay. So pretty much that's like a minus of like telling like if they asked us questions on this black belt test and we have to pretty much physically tell them or like verbally tell them like the answer the questions. But in this case, we have essays. So that's just pretty much kind of like a relief of doing that, but yet we
Mhm.
focus on the endurance part of the test. And usually, from what I've heard, like before my time, yeah, we would probably do like all the katas that before on our black belt test. But in this case, we kind of minimize doing like certain ones they pick for to do a test. And yet, in this case, for my 4th degree, I know I had to do like a made up kata. And after I do the made up kata, I had to explain it, which I didn't because they didn't ask me like how to explain the kata. I mean, in this case, they just had me do a kata that wasn't even required for the test. And, I did it wrong, but I did it. Uh, so, but no, nevertheless, I know it was mainly endurance. You were like probably wiped out, but they were trying to see if you can go past that limit to
Mhm.
to really earn that black belt.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege since then, of course, to attend many other black belt recommendations and sort of be, let's say more in the inner circle of hearing some of the conversations afterwards and the analysis and saying, here's what this person did well, here's what, all that kind of stuff. And so you kind of get to understand what they're looking for. And my understanding is that it's not about how good a fighter you are, because by that point you expect that everyone's a good fighter. So it's more about the mental game of can you get pushed to that point where you don't think you can go any further and then still stand on the line and still be ready to fight and still get back in there. And often Hachi Legacy, who oversees those recommendations, he'll basically not end the fight of whoever they're fighting in that particular instance until they get at least one good shot in. You don't get to step out until you at least do one good technique, punch or kick, whatever it is that could end the fight if you were in that kind of situation. So you have to basically prove that you're able to keep fighting past the point where you maybe didn't think you could before you came that day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. No,
Yeah.
definitely. Whenever you think about like you hear the conversations, I'm definitely on the other side of being on the testing board, and yeah, just watching these young kids move up in ranks, it just makes me want to actually go and test and actually show these kids like this is what you expect to do. And, definitely I see within like 15 minutes of the test, it's like they're huffing and puffing, and it's like we try to teach these kids you got to make sure you're conditioned and
Mhm.
well not only mentally and physically just but nutritiously. It's like don't eat the wrong foods before you do this test. You get yourself wiped out.
Yeah, you got to be completely ready, right?
Yeah.
Mind, body, and spirit. You can't have a crappy diet and dinner the day before and expect that it's going to go fine. One big memory that sticks out for me in my own shonen recommendation is someone in our dojo named Sensei Scott Barron, who's now a ninth dan in our dojo. I think maybe halfway through the fights, we're getting close to the end. Sensei Legacy says, "Anybody else want to fight this guy?" And he was one of the corner guys, basically refereeing it, or not refereeing, but basically just watching the fight, making sure it was going okay. And he just bows and steps in front of me. No mouthpiece, no hand foot gear, just stepped in front of me, and I just about shit my pants. I was worried.
Yeah.
It's you know how good a fighter this person is, and then they step in front of you with nothing and just yeah, it was a moment that sticks in my memory. I don't, the rest of the fights are honestly a little bit of a blur just because of the exhaustion and everything, but that moment is enshrined.
Yeah, it's like you're fighting like one person at a time, and then you got like a 2 minute round. But in this case, you end up having to fight 2 on 1, and that's like definitely a challenge. But
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it wasn't 2-on-1. I just mean that he was one of the black belts on the edge, and he was the next one to fight me, which I wasn't expecting in that moment. So it was a big deal.
well, yeah, in my case, I had to do that. I had to do like a 2 on 1, and then yeah, it's I had to like think smart. Going against two people, like one thing you don't want to get caught in the middle. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're like I kind of call it like the star constellation. Like somebody's in front of you and the person's behind you. You take the
Mm,
person in front, kind of knock them in the person in the back. Then yeah,
that's exactly it. Keep moving around. Don't let them surround you, right? Keep the two of them in one line, or if there's more of them, keep them all in front of you in a line.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Uh, all right, let's kind of go to like your current status. And of course, you're here. You are a fourth degree, and of course, you understand that you're into engineering. So what engineering do you are doing?
Yeah, I'm currently doing my PhD. I should correct, I don't have a PhD yet, but I'm working on my PhD degree, technically in civil engineering. My actual specialization is in hydrology, so sort of large scale movement of water on landscapes, natural hydrology.
Oh, water.
Yeah,
S-
yeah.
so you kind of purify water, or you're just kind of getting like a correct flow of water.
Getting the correct flow would be the best way to put it. In layman's terms, I'll say when rain falls on the ground, you basically run these models, and I work on the modeling side. So I basically develop computer models that predict when the rain comes. You use basically rainfall, temperature, some other information to predict when that storm happens or that rain comes, how much water is going to be flowing through the different rivers at a given time. So and that's used for flood forecasting and managing reservoirs and things like that.
Yeah, I can think about a couple years ago that we were suffering for like a flood. I mean, by that time I was in Las Vegas that when it happened. So I mean, I definitely lost the pleasure of getting a bath outside. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to worry about wasting my money in a water bill. But yeah, in that case, we were flooded, and all the streets were flooded. Here I am in Las Vegas where it's hot, and then everybody's getting a bath outside. So yeah,
Yeah, it's always ironic when you get those flash floods in desert areas where they get basically no water most of the year, and then it all seems to come in one event. Yeah.
uh, who would you say you look up to in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, in our podcast, we always have the question of who's the most influential martial artist in your life, and I kind of take that in a similar vein. So for me, it's an easy answer, which is Sensei Renny Dauphin. He's the instructor I've had since, lying or my parents since my parents lied about my age when I was 5, and have been with him since. So he's of course someone to look up to. But beyond that kind of obvious looking up to your sensei, there were a number of people, like I said, that I sort of felt like I grew up with in the dojo. So some names like Megan Mirda and Adam Langer and a few other people that were kind of like my big brothers and sisters. Someone who still trains in the dojo since Ron Watson. He's also a fourth dan in our club. He was the dad of some other people that were in the dojo that were all around my age, and so he was kind of like my, let's say third karate dad. He was kind of the guy that would take me down when I was too young to drive on Saturday mornings and take me to the classes and kind of look out for me in that way. And so those are some of the people I would say I look up to in the dojo.
Yeah, we always gotta have that one sensei that's like a karate pops. That's why I call it. Yeah, of course I got my karate pops. We always like he always looks after me, and yet I can't forget about that one drive we did towards my fourth degree test. We missed two exits, but luckily, I mean, we was like driving from midnight to 7 o'clock to Boston. So yeah, it's
Oh man.
of course I mean going there was all right, but going back, I mean, I know there was traffic going towards uh, um, Boston because there was an accident. So luckily we didn't get caught up in that.
Yeah, I mean, drive you make a drive that long in one go. I'm not maybe it's not too surprising if a couple exits get missed because it's a long journey. You get tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, lucky it's not Toronto because streets are so narrow. It's easy pickings for an accident.
That's right. Yeah, you have to have your wits about you, head on a swivel in traffic like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I make sure I go early. So make sure I go early to go where I need to be.
That's smart. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
the night before if you can.
yeah. Get a hotel.
Yeah, yeah, much easier.
All right. Before we kind of get to our hidden dojo segment, here's the last question. What inspirational quote best describes your journey?
Yeah, one that we have in our dojo frequently is a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and that's one that I like a lot. If my favorite sort of interpretation of it is that you don't need to have everything figured out in your journey. You just have to take a step in the right direction, and if you do that every day, you take that 1,000 mile journey to get where you need to go. But every step in that journey is just one step at a time. So you don't have to do 10 steps or 100 steps at a time. You just have to step in a good direction, and as long as you keep doing that, then you get to where your destination is, right?
Yeah, you pretty much got almost like you take that one step, you kind of have to stop for a minute and then, just do what you have to do before you move on. And then, yeah, it's like each step should have like kind of like a journey. Like I don't know how to best to say it. Like, mostly I say sequential training. I just have my students just stand there in like a ready position or sort of like stationary position, and they do their punches, their kicks, and then of course we kind of add the footwork. So yeah, you got the moves down, so let's add the footwork to those moves, and then of course from there we'll get you moving.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's how it starts in the physical journey, but yeah, it's just wherever you are in your journey, just one step at a time. If you need to look, if you know punches, you need to learn how to do your next kick. That's what you have to do, and you don't need to focus on doing entire katas at that point. Just learn how to do a side kick, and then learn how to do a back kick, and just one thing at a time. And if you only know P and knee down, you just know your first kata. That's okay. Learn the first move of the next kata. That's a step in the right direction, right?
Yep.
And I think as you get more, you progress further. I think it's easier to kind of take some steps backwards and take some detours, but as long as you're stepping and you stay in the game and you keep moving forward, or at least moving forward the best way that you think you can, then you'll make that progress, right? It's just when you stop taking those steps because you're not sure what to do or because it's difficult, that's when you get lost, and yeah, things don't work out after that.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing. You don't want to take that step backwards or stay in the same place. You want to make sure you got know what you're doing before you take that next step.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. Know what you're doing, but even if you take a step and realize it's the wrong one, it's okay. You just got to keep trying and keep stepping. And I think everyone in their journey, martial arts or otherwise, I think it's impossible to take every step perfectly. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to take the step to realize that it wasn't the right one, and you retrace, figure it out. But it's still part of those steps in your journey. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our hidden dojo segment of interview. So this is where I ask Robert 7 questions, or definitely this is the fun part of it. So of course, some of these are non martial arts related, but yet, of course, Robert is the person with the answers, and yeah, so definitely this is almost like a game a little bit. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right. So the first question is the best piece of advice that you ever gotten, and who said it?
I received a lot of good advice, but one for whatever reason that sticks in my brain is professor who was at the University of Waterloo named Sanjeev Bedi. He was the head of mechatronics engineering at the time. I was doing a co-op term working for him and another prof, and he said, "Don't jam. Just don't jam. If you're working on something, it doesn't, it's not progressing well, or you get frustrated, just switch to something else, make progress there, take a break, and then come back to that thing." And so it's basically just don't burn yourself out on that thing. Just switch it up, and as long as you're making progress and you're moving forward, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, and it usually is a question that people don't get. What's the worst advice you ever gotten?
Yeah, I one so I had a boss at a company I worked at, and um, he gave me a lot of bad advice about relationships, and I think he was, let's say, unhappy with his current relationship. Older and married, but maybe not married for much longer, and he gave me a lot of advice about what to do with money and how to hide it from your spouse and how to you should build a home theater in your basement so you can't hear the kids crying upstairs and just let your wife deal with it, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So that was advice I didn't follow.
yeah. So I guess he is divorced. Yeah,
But yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's quite possible by now.
yeah. I mean, the good thing I'm single, so I don't have to worry about nothing. Yeah, I think I'm too stingy. So yeah, but, but I mean, he'll come sooner or later. So I'm not gonna be rushing it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's not a race, right?
yeah. Uh, all right. How do you reward yourself? I kind of call this the guilty pleasure.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have a lot of time for this, but I do enjoy watching sort of supernatural or horror themed TV shows and movies. It's funny because my wife doesn't like those. She won't go near those that genre with a 10-foot stick. My kids are of course too young, and so I basically have nobody to watch that stuff with. And so again, not that I have a lot of time to watch TV these days by myself, but when I do, it's usually something in that theme, and I just enjoy it. That's my guilty pleasure, I would say.
Super, supernatural movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not into scary movies very much. You know, that for the classics are more scarier than the ones now. But you know,
I heard something interesting about that. Yeah, maybe it'll change your mind, but something about how having those scary things, the things that get your heart rate up, it's actually good for your health to have kind of that flush of stress through your system now and again. Of course, you get them in many ways, but I've heard that they, in some sense, can be. Let's assume you don't have a heart attack from it. It can be good for your health.
yeah.
So maybe there's a reason to do it.
Hey, all right. What famous movie would you want to be in?
My dad was super into sci-fi and still is. And one of I would say the two movies that I watched with him and have fond memories of him and I sort of bonding it over were Alien, the original, and Terminator. So yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Terminator.
Oh yeah, Terminator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, even if I was just a grocery clerk in the background before Terminator burst in or something like that, that would be I would have loved to have been in one of those movies as an extra.
yeah. What would be the first Terminator or Terminator 2?
Uh, Probably Terminator 2, although I think my favorite, the ones after kind of lose me, but Terminator 3 was probably my favorite of that. Although I do think of Terminator 2 as the classic.
Yeah, so I mean, Terminator. I mean, I love the other Terminator movies, but Terminator 2 was like probably my personal favorite. I grew up with watching that movie, and and it's just like Sarah Connor was just like I don't I don't know how to describe her, but like in the first movie, she was like this scared little soul, but now she was like military
Yeah,
type woman. So
yeah, that's right. She was badass in that second movie.
yeah, it's like I'm not messing with Linda Hamilton. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's what makes Alien pretty good too, because Ellen Ripley is just a badass, right?
oh yeah, Alien too. Alien Resurrection. That kind of got in that movie too. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, I love those movies. That one of those two would be the ones. But yeah, let's go with Terminator 2.
yeah. All right. Hidden talent.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like in my life I have sort of segments of people I know. I mean, like I think everyone does, but for many people who don't know me from martial arts, my hidden talent is martial arts. I'm a I guess you can't see me on camera in the podcast, but I'm a young looking, unassuming, nerdy looking guy. And so a lot of people would not take a look at me and think, oh, this is someone who I don't want to mess with. So in some sense, martial arts is my hidden talent. Um, Otherwise, uh, I am quite good with computers, I'll say. So I'm pretty good at figuring out technology, and I've been doing a lot of sort of support for things at the dojo. I've done that World Martial Arts Live, connecting 96 instructors from around the world on Zoom, and figured out how to do that within a few months and pulled it off successfully. So yeah, I would say figuring out technology in a pinch is maybe a hidden talent.
Oh, like I say, my hidden talent is like I got good voice impersonation. So of course, if you catch me in like a wax museum and you think the wax model is talking to you, that's probably me. Yeah.
I'm gonna drive to Niagara and meet you, and we'll go to some wax museums. That'll be fun.
Yeah, if they at least got one of Dark Vader, definitely I can do a killer Dark Vader.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I like that
yeah,
talent.
yeah, of course, James Earl Jones is retiring, so and they need at least find a replacement for Darth Vader.
Get your name in there. That's a good cash cow.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Speaking of course, we're talking about movies. Dream celebrity encounter.
Yeah, I mean, not to keep mentioning our own show, but we talk a lot about movie celebrities and things like that. And yeah, I think for me it would be Jackie Chan. I think I was a little bit late on growing up on Bruce Lee, but yeah, I remember seeing Jackie Chan in movies as a kid, and of course I was already in martial arts at that point. But just watching him in movies like The Tuxedo, I was like, oh man, that's cool. Like I wish I could move like that, do things like that, fly, jump kick like that. And so for me, I think it would be Jackie Chan. That would be awesome if I could just run into him at in the airport or something like that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, you probably started around the time he did like Rush Hour 1 came out.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That would have been about the time.
Yeah, so yeah, that'd probably be someone I'd like to meet, Jackie Chan. I know he's probably pretty much retired, but the band that just does martial arts and his own stunts is
Mhm.
amazing. It's like, of course, every martial arts has to have his own stunt man, but him, he's like he's doing the whole package.
That's right. And I feel like when you're at that level and you're just so invested in it and you do your own stunts, I feel like I don't know. I can't picture someone like Jackie Chan fully retiring. He probably still, even if he's not making movies, he's probably still practicing stunts in his backyard or something.
Yeah, just think about all the injuries he had to do doing all those stunts.
Yeah, that's right. You can't go flying through the earth a thousand times without a couple things happening, right?
Yeah, I still think about me just doing my own stunts. Of course, going to pro wrestling, I've had to deal with this patellar tendon rupturing. So, I mean, I won't be jumping for a while, but at least once I get that healed up, I'll be back jumping. And
Hmm. Yeah. Things you don't think about when you're 20, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm almost in my 40s, so I feel it's. I mean, I can't call myself old yet. I mean,
No, no, that's right. Yeah, I'm just 30, so I've still got a bit to go. But I won't say I'm starting to slow down, but I do feel I'll say I'm starting to just get the very beginning sense of these things hurt a little bit more than maybe they used to, where it takes an extra half day to recover, things like that. So yeah, I can only imagine when you get up to your 60s, 70s, 80s, how it feels.
yeah, we're not grown. We're not all grown up to be Wolverine.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
yeah,
Would be nice that way.
yeah. All right, final question. Uh, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I see myself in so many places, honestly, TJ. Like, yeah, obviously, on the martial arts front. So I'm currently a prestigious one stripe white belt in BJJ, but hoping to basically progress further with that. Hopefully, be at some point brown or black belt in that and teaching classes, doing that alongside my stronger karate, teaching that as well. Um, yeah, I mean, basically teaching classes, having my own students, which I do now. I've had to take a bit of a step back with in recent months with newborn and two toddlers at home, so things are a bit hectic. But certainly 10 years from now, having been back in the swing of that, teaching those classes, having those students, actually seeing some people through to their black belt and beyond would be really rewarding. Kind of complete myself as, or not complete, but at least move myself further along in being an instructor as well, to have students that get to that high level. Um, yeah, I mean, I still feel like I've got hopefully many years in front of me in terms of martial arts. So yeah, continuing to improve and really focusing on teaching in the next 10 years.
Well, amazing. Yeah, just always have a plan, like what you're gonna do as you progress, going up to like a higher rank. So yeah, just making sure your martial arts journey grows into like something that's gonna be inspiring to others, so they actually take the same journey.
Yeah, yeah, like we said, that's always the goal, right? You want to be inspiring for your students, and it is a sort of symbiotic relationship with your students, right? Because if I think if you didn't have students that were looking up to you, it would be easier to, let's say, plateau and sort of rest on your laurels there. But when you have students, they always push you forward too, and because they're getting better, they're getting closer to where you are. You always have to say, I got to keep moving now too, and I got to keep getting better, and I got to keep pushing, because if I don't do that, what reason do they have to do it, right? You want to be always moving ahead with your students, and they push you forward too. So it could definitely goes both ways there.
Yeah, definitely. Just thinking about my the convention I go to, we have like a gala and we have like special awards. We have instructor of the year, school of the year, and most inspirational. And then in this case, me, I am nominated for most inspirational. This is like the third time in like in a row that I was nominated. Of course, the first two times I didn't win, so I'm guessing for this year I'll probably win, but likely I won't. But I mean, one thing I'm more concerned about is the going up to fifth degree. So rather, if I don't get the most inspirational award, I'll get that fifth degree. I guess the thing about me about this is like being nominated three times in a row is that somebody really thinks of me out there, and yeah, that's really something I'm looking forward to this year. Uh, okay, uh, so before we kind of close out, Robert, do you have any last minute words you like to say to our viewers out there? Oh, he froze. Hey, Robert, you still there? He froze. But we're almost close to the end of our interview anyway. But yeah. So I mean, wonder if you can hear me. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, Robert Robert Chlumsky has frozen, but we're close to the end to our podcast. That's nevertheless, like I said, I am nominated. Let's see. Let me reach him out. Oh, I'm still going. Yeah, I'm kind of reaching out to Robert because I want to at least finish this podcast up. But I mean, I got magic powers. Imagine that. I guess that fifth degree magic is really happening. Let's see if I can didn't work. Let me see if I can do it again. Hmm. Yeah, my internet got cut off for a second. I'll jump back on in a minute. Ah, well, while we're waiting here, like I said, I've been nominated for that's something else. I've been nominated for most inspirational for the ITC. So that's a big accomplishment. So hopefully in this case I win. But of course, while we wait for Robert to come back on, um, yeah, we're gonna get his final word, and then we're gonna kind of cut out. But nevertheless, I am a month away from the convention, and yet, other than working on the like my fifth degree, there's katas, and I'm gonna do a Shotokan kata known as Jin, uh, Jin, and that's like, and then of course I'm gonna be doing a Tafa kata with weapons, and yet, yeah, as he says, his internet just cut off. So let's see what, and of course here he is. He's come back on here, and let's see. Hmm. Yeah, he's got a twin. Let's see. Here it comes. In three, two, one.
Hey, TJ, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
There we go. Well, that's weird. It's not letting me start my video.
Uh, well, we're pretty much at the end of the podcast. So of course, I'm gonna wait to get situation, and I'm gonna have you do the final word toward the listeners. So, and
Yeah. Sorry, you were just talking about being inspirational in the dojo.
yeah,
Um, yeah, sorry for this. Hopefully you can get your editor to take care of that. Um, One thing I was just going to say on future plans, I mentioned I have three kids at home. They're of course quite young now, way too young for martial arts at this time. Although I have brought them to the dojo a couple times, and they like to watch what's going on. And I'll say, "Okay, kids, we're going to the dojo," and my daughter especially will start kicking and punching in the air and waving her hands around. So it's not to say they're not picking nothing up at this point. Um, but part of the plans for 10 years from now is I really hope, and without trying to push them into anything. I really hope they get into it too, and they get to share in this thing that's also really important to me. So I hope that comes to fruition. Again, it's not something I plan on sort of pushing on them, but I think because it's just such a big part of my life that they'll naturally get curious and find their way into the dojo one way or another. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what that looks like 10 years from now.
Yeah. All right. So of course, this will be an audio as well. So of course, the listeners will hear your final words. So do you have any final words you'd like to tell our listeners out there before we cut out?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much, TJ, for having me on. This was a lot of fun. As I said, it's my first podcast appearance, hopefully not the last. I think if I want to say any message, let's say two things. One of them is just how important podcasts like this are for connecting martial artists and keeping people inspired. You know, telling these stories, talking about martial arts. I think it adds a real value to the martial arts community, and so thank you for doing that. And the other thing is just keep training, keep taking that step in the right direction, especially if you're in a difficult moment in your martial arts career, or you're plateauing, or you're not progressing, or you've had some setbacks. Just realize it's not about who's best, it's about who's left. And so just keep training, keep working on what you're doing. And as long as you keep making some sort of progress forward, even if it's marginal, even if it's incremental, I think you said on the other episode of Sincerity No Fan that you always win or lose by an inch and you always progress just by inch. I like that. It's kind of the same message, right? You're not going to make leaps and bounds. You just have to move forward one inch at a time, one step at a time, and that's how you make real progress. So just sort of in your martial arts career, keep the faith and just keep training and you'll get to where you need to be.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Robert. So I'm sorry we kind of have a technical difficulty, but of course that's not going to affect the audio because they're going to hear me talking. But nevertheless, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. So I hope everything goes well for you. So definitely, in probably the near future, I'll probably run into you and we probably train. So definitely, I'd like to at least get at least a little sample of your style.
I would love that. Yeah. And best of luck to you, TJ, both in your fifth Dan exam. And I hope you win that inspiration award. I think and let's say even if you don't, you said you've been nominated 3 times. I think that must mean they think you're inspirational, award or not. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah, so definitely keep your eye on Instagram and Facebook. So definitely you'll see I'll probably post it as soon as I get the award as well as to get the fifth degree. So definitely, I know I'm gonna get bombed that day, pretty much. Uh, all right, so I'm gonna do my closing of the podcast. All right, so for those who just tuning in for the first time, tune into my previous episodes on the BICBPRadio.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And I'll catch you next time for another episode here at the Kickpod Podcast. This is your host, TJ Williams. Bow you out.